Welcome to Collectively Connected, where we explore the stories and events shaping our world. I'm Denise.
And I'm Damien. In today's episode, we're diving into a political shakeup that no one saw coming. Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s surprising endorsement of former President Donald Trump has left both sides stunned, sparking new conversations and debates across the country.
We're discussing the key moments leading up to this unexpected alliance, including Kennedy's powerful appearance at a Trump rally in Arizona. Is this partnership a game changer? And could it possibly redefine the political landscape as we know it?
We'll also share our personal reactions and discuss the potential for collaborations between Kennedy, Trump, and even figures like Tulsi Gabbard. Could this be the start of a new political movement, or is there more going on behind the scenes?
We're talking strategy, including Kennedy's decision to withdraw from swing states to avoid spoiling the race, and how he's playing the long game to build a new party by 2028.
So buckle up as we navigate this new alliance. Let's get into it. Hey, babe.
Hey.
How you feeling?
I'm feeling okay. I'm feeling all right. It's been a few days since Kennedy has suspended his campaign and has linked up with Trump.
He's endorsed former President Donald Trump.
Yes, he did.
Right.
Yeah, how do you feel about that?
That was heavy on my heart.
Yeah.
I feel like I understood because he broke down why he was suspending his campaign.
He had a really good speech.
Yeah, it was a great speech. And he broke down the reason why it just, at this point in the race, for him to keep going, and that he had contacted President Trump and they had a conversation like after his assassination. They had actually talked. I remember some things were getting linked around or leaked talking about their conversation, and Democrats were like, oh, he's a plant. See, he's having conversations with them. But he did reveal, yeah, we did have conversations to talk about like what that would look like. Because I think he flew out to meet him at his home, and they talked about like not their differences, but what do they have in common? They actually had more in common than he thought, in that it would be better to run like a unity ticket. So it's a unity ticket that they basically agreed upon, and Trump kind of promised him some cabinet positions, but he was like, if Trump keeps his word, I'm going to suspend my campaign and basically put my whole support behind Donald Trump. So He said all that.
I mean, I think we should go way back to the interview with Nicole Shanahan that started the talk as an option where they link up with him, and we thought there's no way. I didn't believe that was the route that he was going to take, especially because he had mentioned before in the past that like he didn't join this race to lose. Larry Sharp.
Right.
Yeah, we listened to him on a YouTube channel, and he was breaking down how any which way is a win for Kennedy. And when he gave the speech of him suspending his campaign, mainly in battleground states, right?
Mm-hmm.
It made sense. When he explained all the horrible things that the Democrats have been doing to kind of keep him off the ballot, and who knows what else they got up their sleeves before November.
Right.
But it made sense. One thing that I did like also is how Kennedy, I saw in an interview, just the other day, that he was in meetings for 4 days. For 4 days with important leaders that he looks up to for 4 days, coming up with every single scenario possible. And this one was the best scenario with the best outcome. And I'm 100% behind Kennedy. I know that this choice, he didn't pick it lightly. And I can tell when he was giving his speech, it wasn't easy, and then when we saw him on stage at the Trump rally in Arizona.
How'd you feel about that?
I was excited for him because the way that they presented him, the music, the fireworks.
He came out to "There Goes My Hero" by the Foo Fighters.
Yeah, which they're suing him.
Yeah, they're like suing Trump, saying, "We didn't give you authorization to use my song." They said they were going to sue Trump for having them introduce Kennedy, and they said the proceeds were going to go to Kamala's administration. I was like, what?
Whoa.
That's crazy.
We know what side you're on.
Yeah. But anyway, so how did you feel about that?
I felt really excited for him. I felt excited for the way that they cheered for him because I have been in rallies for him. It was never that big.
Mhm.
There wasn't a stadium full of people, even though there should have been. I was just excited that he got that. But I could feel how tough that was to have to stand there and swallow your pride for the people. But at the same time, I'm so glad that he has such a good ego that he can stand up there, join forces with Trump out of all people for the people. And I felt that. It was hard for him, especially when he was sharing the part of what we should look for in a president. I bet he was, all these things are me, but people couldn't see it right now at the time that we're in. So it's not an end, right? It's almost like a beginning, a new beginning. It's almost like he had to pick up a whole new book. He was going down this path and he had to kind of close that. But for right now, I think this is pretty cool. What Trump is doing in building a unity party, I think it's exciting. It's not been done before. What makes it easy for me, because I would have voted for Trump last election. You convinced me to vote for Biden, which I heavily regret. But I'm not 100% against Trump. Sometimes he just sounds so dumb when he's talking. I'm sorry, he does. But I'm starting to be open-hearted about what he's saying. Get through how he's sounding and really listening to actually what he's saying. Because now I go back, I'm like, okay, they tried to kill him. Why? He must be doing something that's threatening them. With Kennedy jumping on board with him, he has a lot of smart people behind him in his campaign camp where I'm like, they thought of everything. They were smart in the way that they went around and marketed and it was very clever the way that they were running their campaign. And so I don't think that they failed to look at every single angle for a potential win or which option was best for him to be able to get his message across, because he was being heavily censored, so it wasn't reaching a lot of people. And to be able to come in and actually do the work that he wants to do, which I think being on board with Trump actually gives him that freedom to focus on those key things that he wants to do once Trump wins the White House. So I think that's exciting. I'm excited for him. I'm excited that he's getting a bigger stage. He deserves that. He deserves a big stage for people to be hearing. I think it's also going to help with the awakening process of the people in this country, for them to start to realize what's happening to them.
Yeah,
Sorry, I know that was long-winded. So you share your feelings about that rally.
There's a lot of different ways to look at it, because there's a lot that's been happening. But first off, it hurt my heart because I know that was the best situation for him. And I'm sure he looked at all the odds, calculated all the scenarios, and it was probably just a few days before that had leaked out that he was getting sued off the New York ballot because they were claiming that he didn't live in New York. And so basically him getting sued off of that ballot opened the floodgates up to having all these other states start suing him off the ballot as well. So they're basically just like trying to swamp him with court shit, and now that happened, it's like, okay, how expensive is it going to have to be to go back to all these different courts? And that's why he hasn't been able to campaign. So they're just draining his funds on making him show up in court. So that's kind of the underlying cause that people don't really realize, and how expensive it is. He's like, we're spending tens of millions of dollars just in court. I'm not campaigning, I can't campaign. So just from that perspective, if this is a free and fair election, why are you suing someone off of the ballot to run for president? If any of us can run for president, if I can run for president, if this is a free country and I can run for president, why are you suing me off of a ballot to run for president? That doesn't sound very free and fair.
Also, for the people who are out here sharing the truth about what's really going on when we talk about the people.
Right.
Like being a sick country, being the highest diabetically, being the highest in child diabetes, being, all of these, we rank so high worldwide. And you're suing him to keep him off the ballot because he is out here speaking truth.
Yeah. So that kind of like when you look at his decision making of why he had to essentially do this, I get it. I understand why he had to make this decision. And, it made me, number one, it was really nice to see his standing ovation, by the MAGA crowd. It was really touching.
It really was.
It was really cool to see, like you said, I think he should have always had an audience that big, but, with the way he's been getting censored, he wasn't reaching enough people. And I think he realized that, they've been trying to get at him at every single turn. And I think this was just the best scenario. I'm glad that he and Trump had a conversation and a dialogue. And it sounds like Trump actually does want to work with him, does want to like put together an actual team to fix our country. I think I've been really hard on Trump because of the last 4 years, because of his team of who he put in office the last time around.
Right.
And it definitely showed his colors of who he is or who he represented. And I think why I've been so hard on Trump before is because I think we were just waiting for some accountability or even like a type of apology, like, hey, I don't know what I'm doing. I didn't know who to trust and who these guys. I don't know that. Nobody knows that. We don't know that. You don't know who the good guys and the bad guys are in there.
He has said that in some interviews.
Okay.
I watched an interview with him the other day where he was saying, I was on the way to the White House when I became president. I was sitting in the car with my wife. We're being ushered by all these police. I looked at my wife, holy shit, I'm the president of the United States. And then he continued to say how he didn't know anybody's names, let alone what they did for their jobs, because he wasn't a lifetime politician. So he went in there not knowing anybody and was saying how he was taking advice from these people. And then he said he now knows who the bad guys are.
Yeah.
It's reassuring.
Yeah. Well, I think, it's important because I was talking to, there's a guy that we text message back and forth because the rumors going around that Kennedy plans to drop out and endorse Trump. So that was kind of so it's going like viral. He's like trending #1. And I was talking to him. He's like, do you think if that does end up happening, do you think Kennedy supporters would support that decision and vote Trump? Yeah. And I was like, I'm not sure. I wasn't quite sure if, #1, if that was even going to happen, if that was just a rumor or if that was actually true. So now that it is true, he has dropped out and endorsed Trump. Okay, got to make a decision here. So after hearing that, I see Trump a little bit differently. Like I said, I see how he was embraced. It was a huge crowd in Arizona, and Kennedy just got a lot of love. And he had a great speech as usual. And I feel like he turned a lot of people on to who he really is. And a lot of people didn't even take a second to look at that. And so for that, I'm really grateful. And if Trump can keep his word of what he plans to include Kennedy on, what he's promised Kennedy to actually make this country healthy again and to really clean up this food industry. And he also promised to have a special counsel to look into president assassinations.
Yeah,
that's huge. A lot of people didn't realize, because what I looked at that as is that not only are you going to be given certain authority, because if you're looking to assassinations, that means you need to really have some access to some stuff. Because if you're looking into the potential assassination of your dad and your uncle, you need to really start digging deep. And what you're going to find is probably what people aren't ready to hear, because it's been years and we haven't even had these files. They say it's classified, but what could have been so wrong that we don't even have a right to know? So
it's not, we don't have a right to know. It's who they're covering up.
Well, exactly. And
they don't want that.
Once again, that's why it's classified. So we don't have a right to know. So that'll be really cool, for him to have that type of closure. I'm sure that's something he's had all of his life. What happened to my dad? That's a fair question. I don't get to know what happened to my dad. Who did it? No, is that the whole case? So that's going to be kind of cool. But also him looking into Trump's assassination attempt as well. It's all presidential assassination. So I remember Kennedy saying, we're going to get to the bottom of what's really going on around here, of what happened. So I think a lot of people are missing that. And for him to have that type of power and access, especially if Trump is elected president, I think he's like, yeah, sign me up.
Yeah.
Sign me up to have that. Sign me up to help clean up this food industry and start wiping out these chronic diseases. I think for him, that was enough to put his ego to the side and say, yeah, I will, go ahead and suspend the campaign and put my full support behind Trump on this unity ticket to get him back in office. And I'm for it. To be honest, it made me start looking at Trump a little differently. I think Trump got a lot of more viewers checking out his rallies and stuff like that, because you're seeing a lot of Kennedy supporters now. And now what's going around is, you have the MAHA group, which are the Kennedy supporters, the Make America Healthy Again, supporting the MAGA, the MAGA group. So I'm seeing a lot of like MAHA and MAGA,
Yeah.
seeing like little hats and t-shirts and stuff going around. And it's pretty cool.
I like what it's doing as far as unity goes.
Bringing a lot of people together.
Yeah.
That like we're kind of on the same page, but we're still kind of like not acknowledging each other, but now we're finally together.
And also it's exciting because they're kind of teasing us about new people joining this unity party, right? And who they will be. And we don't know who they are yet, but I know Tulsi Gabbard has been one. So that's exciting to have just a female representative.
So Trump has asked, this is just, I'm not sure if it's been actually confirmed, but he's asked Kennedy and Tulsi Gabbard to actually help him pick his cabinet positions once he's elected. So if that ends up being true, that's huge, because you have two very well-respected, just knowledgeable people. Tulsi Gabbard is a brilliant woman. I think I was stumping for her to be Kennedy's VP, and she was trying to be Trump's VP at one time. And then you have Kennedy, who he's been here speaking truth and just doing work. So if those two end up ultimately being almost like Trump's behind the scene advisors, and he's actually like, truly respecting those two and building this cabinet out the right way, holy crap, man, look out, because they're not going to bring in scumbags. And I think they're all on the same page that we're not having scumbags in this White House anymore. Like, you guys can kick rocks. That's done.
And it's interesting because I never sat and listened to Trump really, like what he was saying, because it was kind of hard to get through how he talks. So I understand people that have that problem with Trump. It's really hard. And I also find myself asking, is the things that I hear about Trump as far as like he's a racist, he's a sexist, he's like this or that. It's like, I almost have to take a step back and really look at it from those lens when he's talking too, because is that something that was programmed in me through the Democratic side?
Right.
Or is it true?
Right.
I mean, so I'm finding myself kind of asking that about myself and just really looking at it as a female. It's kind of taking those lens off, right? And kind of wiping my eyes clean and just kind of taking it for what I'm seeing today. Because even if he was those things in the past, do we not believe that people can change? This guy just almost died. And that's what I'm kind of seeing. Has this made a change in him? Because it seems like, okay, now you're creating this team. Like, these guys try to kill me.
Okay, this is some serious stuff.
Yeah.
Let's stop playing enemies and let's start looking at, because we're both basically talking about the same stuff here.
Yeah.
And I think that Kennedy said that he was on the phone with him like 3 hours after they almost tried to kill him.
Yeah.
That means it's like, hey man, all right, how can we work together?
Exactly.
And let's stop fucking around and let's start joining up, like real talk.
Because I can see Trump kind of running that scenario. We all know Trump also gets donations, very large donations from different companies. We know that. Yeah. But is he now like, wow, these guys try to kill me if they're a part of this whole thing? And really talking to us, and it really kind of changed his mindset, I feel like. I'm watching and listening to hear for that and hear for the person that he is today, not the person he was 4 years ago, because I believe people can change.
So let's talk about how this impacts the election as a whole. Okay, with Kennedy dropping out, he said, I'm not withdrawing, I'm suspending my campaign. He said, I'm going to be removing my name from the ballot on all 10 of the swing states in the country. But
and so what are swing states?
So swing states are like battleground states. Those are states that one time they can go Democrat, another time they can go Republican. Sometimes it's usually like a very thin margin that can flip it one way or another.
Okay.
So they're not historically one side or
One
another.
side
They're
or the
kind of like,
other.
okay, maybe we do
Yeah.
like the Democrats this time, but we'll go Republicans next time.
Okay.
So those are the ones where you want to target them because you want
Because they flip. Like every election, they could
exactly.
be.
Oh, we go this
It's
guy
not
now.
like a steady like California.
Exactly.
It's
Or Texas.
Democrat all the way.
Exactly.
You'll never
No
get them
matter
to
what.
vote, and it's been like that for years.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So when you start looking at that strategy wise, because you need, like, each state comes with a certain number of electoral votes, and you want to obviously get the most votes to win. So, your strategy is
So he removed himself from those
from the battleground states,
which he
yes.
said is about 10 states.
Yes, correct.
With him doing that just means that he doesn't spoil it, because that's where he becomes a spoiler in those battleground states, because now we just don't really know who will win. What the Democrats have been doing them, it's almost like he knows he can't win overall.
Kind of.
Right?
I mean.
And so if he stays in there, he kind of messes with the votes as far as Republican or Democrat did vote if he stays in that state, right?
Kind of. With him being on the ballot in battleground states, and I don't really know exactly what his poll projections were in there, because it depends. If he's at like a 10% polling or 15% polling, and once again, if he's going against President Trump, because they both are almost pulling in like similar types of people, so he's almost taking away from Trump. And if it ends up being like 50-50, let's say Kamala was at like 49% and Trump was at 49%, if Kennedy is taking some away from Trump because they do identify well with him, that actually does essentially hurt Trump in a little bit, because they're still kind of aligning their former Trump supporters.
Yeah.
And so
like they're finding they're probably having more Trump supporters than are Democrat supporters.
Well, yeah.
Pro Kennedy.
Well, yeah.
That are really
typically in states that are too close to call, he doesn't want him to be a deciding factor in a state that's too close to call.
He doesn't want him to be the spoiler.
Yeah. So essentially, by removing his name off, he wanted to put his full support behind Trump, to where now it should be almost an overwhelming for every battleground state, to where we all support President Trump. Yeah. To where those swing states where it's like, okay, you just lost by 2%, a very small, because I think it was one state, it was like 60,000 votes, which really isn't very many, but he lost a couple of states by a small amount of votes last time. So
okay, so curveball. So the Democrats are now making it so he can't remove his name from those battleground states.
A couple of states. It's only a couple. It's not all of the states. It's been like Michigan, and I think it's like Georgia, that so far, since he's announced that he's going to remove it, they are saying that they're not going to let him remove it, and his name has to stay on the ballot. So that is kind of a curveball.
So what would you say to Kennedy supporters that are saying, if he's going to be on there, I'm still voting for him? What do you say to those people, knowing that Kennedy has sat and done the research with leaders and probably analysts, and knowing that could potentially swing the state to be Democrat if people choose to vote for him, right? So what would you say to those people that just can't do either one? I can't vote for Trump. I can't vote for Harris. I'm going to do it. I'm going to vote for him on those states that the Democrats are making sure he stays on the ballot.
I would say I understand why you would want to make that decision, but unfortunately, an emotional decision isn't where we're at in this stage, because now we're talking strategy. And if we're talking strategy and we're playing chess, we're making chess moves right now. And him choosing to suspend his campaign and only take his name off of the battleground states, that's a very strategic move. That's not like, hey, I'm thinking about this. This is what I did. So now we're making major moves.
And if the other teams is keeping him on there because that's their chess move.
Now you have to kind of start thinking, okay, so why would they keep him on there? And so if you want to vote more emotionally, well, I just want to vote RFK. So do I. And we happen to live in a battleground state. That's why we have to kind of talk about this, because we're in a battleground state right now. So it would be really hard to see Robert Kennedy's name on the ballot and not vote for him, because we've been having this entire time as being Kennedy supporters. So I get that. However, with the stakes of where we are, of how important this election is, and knowing that if Kennedy has taken the time to meditate, to talk to his team, and this is the best decision, I'm going to stand by what his decision is. And his decision was to put his full support behind Donald Trump. I think that is going to be the best decision for right now. And I think this is going to elevate Kennedy to a status that we probably wouldn't have even been able to see, because he could have dropped out and just kind of faded away into nothing, saying, well, I tried. Sorry, guys.
Yeah.
And most people do drop out and they disappear a month later. And right now, Kennedy's been trending on every single social platform since he had made that. The mainstream news can't stop talking about him.
Mm-hmm.
A month ago, they weren't even mentioning him.
Yeah.
So it's been a big difference. And once again, that's a chess move right there.
Right. And so if you go against that chess move, you're almost playing into the move the opponent
exactly
team
because now once again, when it comes to states that are too close to call, let's say at 51% in favor of Kamala and 49% in favor of Trump, and you have people saying, F that, I'm going to vote for RFK anyway. Let's say you were a former Trump supporter. I'm going to vote RFK anyway. Now that's 49% for Trump starts dropping down to 46, 45, 44%, lost that state because a few people wanted to be rebellious and just wanted to vote for RFK anyway. That type of thinking or mentality could ultimately lose a state just because you just want to vote for your guy. And so, trust me, I get it. It's hard to do, but in the grand scheme of things, if Trump keeps his word and delivers on what he's promised Kennedy, I think that things are going to be turned around a lot faster. And I think this is going to be ultimately the best decision possible.
So then moving on to the 5% that he talks about, he then talks about, he's going to remain in 40 states. And if he could get 5% of the votes, he can then create his own party.
Right.
And then come 2028, he can actually officially run and officially be on all the ballots without having to get all these petitions signed and all these signatures turned in and all this extra funding that goes to just getting on the ballot. Right. He can actually go straight to campaigning. And I think that's awesome. And so the chess move there where he's like, I'm going to remain on these 40 states because they always go one way or the other. Right. But if we could get 5% of those people, that won't affect the election because guess what? California is going to go Democrat unless God wants different there, that's going to be Democrat, right? And so for the 5% just there or 10% that vote Kennedy, it won't affect, it's going to go Democrat. Right. So you won't. So if you're a Trump supporter in California and you want to help Kennedy get to 5%, vote Kennedy because you're not going to take that state. Right. So I could see that strategy as well as far as he's not a spoiler in those states. Right. Same with Texas. If you're in Texas and you're a Democrat that's like, I really don't like what the Dems are doing, give your vote to Kennedy because it's going to go Republican, right? So
odds are though, any red state they're going to vote Trump. If you're a red state, you're going to vote Trump. Yeah. I like RFK, and we'll talk about him in the future, but I think this more pertains to blue states. Yeah. You have your Californias, you have your Seattles, you have your Portlands, you have your traditionally blue states. That's when you can be a rebel and vote for your guy Kennedy. That's when the biggest difference is going to be because we don't know what those stats are out there. There could be 10%, 15%, 20% in a blue state, and that makes a big difference out there.
And it's the same in a red state. If you're a Democrat and you're really on the fence but you're just like, I can't vote for Trump, right? Give your vote to Kennedy. Exactly. That's where I could see he could eventually get 5% and win and not really mess with the election at hand,
right. Right. So he's stepping aside, but he's still making a case for himself in the future. So that's kind of the biggest chess move that's been made.
So either way, like I said, it's a win-win for.
Right. And I think it's been huge. I think I'm behind it. Like I said, I was kind of hard on Trump for a little while. I don't want to say he's growing on me like that, but I feel like the opportunity that's here, especially being a Kennedy supporter, it's a big opportunity. Yeah. And I'm excited. Yeah. Right. I feel like it's been really cool seeing the MAGA group and the MAHA group kind of come together. And it has been feeling like a really big sense of unity now. And I feel like for the first time, we're all kind of in this with the same mindset that, hey, we got to get our country back. Yes. There's some bad people in the office and we got to get these guys the fuck out of here. And so that's the one thing we all can agree on, that there's bad people in there and that it has to stop now. We got to stop these wars. We've got to stop it, and the only way for these wars to stop, if it's not going to be Kennedy, then it's going to be Trump. And because of that, I'm 100% behind. Day one, the war is done. Like, there's not another dollar. That faucet turns off right now. And so that alone is enough for me to put that vote behind former President Trump, and we're going to support him.
Thank you for taking the time to listen to Collectively Connected with me, Denise, and my husband, Damien. Remember to subscribe, share, and join the conversation. Until next time, stay connected, my friends.